Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon TCG Pocket video here on iStarly TV. And I'm featuring a brand new deck today that I made myself. And yeah, I mean, it's a Rampardos Leafeon deck, which I know sounds kind of weird, but of course, here are all of the cards in the deck. And the thought process I had here, and of course, you know, I'm not sure how good this deck is. It's kind of been like a back and forth kind of matchup or there have been back and forth matchups when I've played this deck. There have been games where I win and it feels good, and then there's games where I lose because I never draw the right pieces. So of course that's always going to happen, but this deck has been pretty fun. So the thought process for this deck is I thought of how good Rampardos is. The fact that it can hit for 130 for just one energy is pretty insane. And then I thought about putting Sylveon in a Rampardos deck, which of course is not a super new concept. I mean, at this point, you can probably put Sylveon EX in just about any deck and make it better. I mean, some of the top decks right now play Sylveon EX, like Charizard EX, as well as the Greninja Giratina deck. So it's just a great card. Like, we already know how good Sylveon EX is. But I also thought that, you know, if we're putting Sylveon in the Rampardos deck, that means we're not going to be playing energy to attack with Sylveon. So I thought maybe there could be another Eevee that we could play that could, you know, also benefit from the fighting energy, or rather that could also attack. So, you know, we're playing all these Eevees, and then that means we can evolve them into Sylveon to draw cards, but we can also evolve them into the other Eevees, which in this case is Leafeon EX, because Leafeon EX can support itself, it can sustain itself. It's kind of the only Eevee that can really do that, or at least the only Eevee EX. And it's kind of the strongest Eevee card that is capable of utilizing fighting energy. You know, all the other ones kind of use energy of their specific type, and because Leafeon EX has the ability to actually put energy onto itself, of course, that kind of helps. And yeah, I mean, if only there was a fighting Eevee, right? That'd be really cool. But I've had certain situations that have felt really good where, you know, we set up Rampardos in the back and, you know, we can kind of freely retreat. Like, there's turns where we can evolve Eevee into Leafeon, and then we put our energy for turn onto Rampardos. And then normally, you know, we wouldn't be able to, like, if it's our first turn that we're evolving, we wouldn't be able to retreat, but because of Leafeon's ability, we can do that. We can put the energy on Leafeon with Forest Breath, and then retreat into Rampardos and go for a 130 damage play right away. I've actually won several games just like on turn 1 or turn 2, whatever it is, because of that play, where I can evolve as soon as possible and then retreat into Rampardos and get the kill right away on their like basic Pokemon. So that is one of the power plays of the deck. You know, you might ask yourself, like, what's the difference between this and the Silvally Rampardos deck, or even the Garchomp Rampardos deck? And of course, those decks have their pros and cons as well compared to this one, but at least with this one, I like the fact that you can, you know, you have a threat that can kind of very quickly set up and can kind of power up Rampardos. And again, it allows you to play Sylveon EX with kind of little drawback, because the rest of the cards in your deck can benefit from, you know, their own kind of thing, if that makes any sense. I don't know. As for the rest of the cards, pretty self-explanatory, though I do have Pokemon Communication in the deck, which I'm not super certain about, if I'm being honest. I do think Sabrina and Cyrus are both pretty good, you know, self-explanatory. It's possible we can cut a Cyrus maybe for like a Lily. I mean, as always, there are a lot of options, especially now that we have so many sets available. Like, there's really so many options for any given deck, and you can only play 20 cards. So as always, I like to say, let me know in the comments what you think of this deck, and please feel free to try it out and let me know how it does for you. There's games where I play this deck and I feel like I'm onto something, and I'm like, wow, I'm really smart. This is such a cool idea. And then there's games where I'm like, yeah, this is probably not it, but you never know. This is an awesome one. I am also playing one Pokeball, I just noticed. The thought process with that is, of course, Pokeball cannot find Skull Fossil, but we are playing 3 Eevees, so maybe you could play 2 Pokeballs if you want. But once again, we're very tight on the number of cards we can play. Anyways, let's just get right to some games and kind of see how it goes. All right, we've got an opponent right away. see how this goes. Another thing that I, didn't really talk about, but obviously because we're playing Skull Fossil, we will never be able to start with it. So that means we're always going to be starting with either Eevee or Eevee EX. There's an argument as well to playing just the 2 non-EX Eevees in the deck. But of course, then you're kind of like tight on space because we have 3 Eeveelutions. I don't know. As far as the numbers go, there's a lot of play you can do, a lot of things you can do to kind of work around certain things. But anyways, pretty interestingly here, my opponent is playing the very popular at the moment Type Null Oricorio or Sylveon Oricorio like Zeraora deck, which is pretty popular with electric energy, obviously. This time it looks like my opponent's playing something a little bit different with Shaman in the deck, which allows them to heal, which is pretty cool. My opponent shuffled away my Skull Fossil, which is pretty annoying. Let's go ahead and research here. I guess we could have Sabrina'd, but I don't think there's really much value in doing that. We cannot evolve, obviously, so let's go ahead and play this. And then, I guess this is cool. We get to attack here, and then next turn we get to hit for 70, so unfortunately, I don't have like Giovanni in the deck. Otherwise, that would be a cool situation where I could actually knock out Sylveon. But either way, let's go ahead and hit for 30 here. So that's the upside to running Eevee EX is you actually get to get in a little bit of damage early game. Whereas this Eevee is really good because you get to draw cards. So, it's a trade-off. I know these Sylveon decks typically don't like to go first. They like to go second because it means that they can attack as quickly as possible with Sylveon. So that's pretty good for us that my opponent kind of has to, take a turn where we get to kind of do our thing. Actually, if they don't evolve here, we can kill them. I also love how my opponent sees me playing Eevees and they see me with fighting energy. So they're like, what the heck are they playing? I really like that. All right, so I think we get to kill them here, which is beautiful. There's a Skull Fossil, which I love. Now, we know they're playing red card. I don't know how common it is. I mean, let's just go ahead and do this because, of course, that's what we're gonna do. I guess I'll just do this, right? I mean, they already red carded. I don't know how common it is to play like multiple red card or multiple Mars effects. Like if they play 1 red card, 1 Mars. I don't know how common that is, but we drew a cape, which at the moment I'm gonna go ahead and just cape the fossil because I can have, that means I can have it on Rampardos. I can still research. Should I research here? Oh, they just concede. Okay. That is hilarious. Like I said, that must look so weird for my opponent's perspective. And that's something that I love about this deck is my opponent sees Eevees right away and then they see fighting energy. It's like, what the heck is going on here? Although they could probably guess that I'm playing like, Sylveon EX with like maybe Garchomp or Rampardos, but I am playing Sylveon, but I'm mostly focusing on Leafeon EX. And as you can see there, Leafeon's actually just a solid threat in the meta right now, especially with that Oricorio Zeraora deck that's running around. That does also beg the question of like, again, there are so many cards you could play in this deck. I do wonder if we could afford like an Eevee bag or a Giovanni or something like that. Maybe we don't need Cape. Obviously, Eevee Bag only works with the Eevees. It does not work with Rampardos. Similarly, something like Lily only works with Rampardos, would not work with the Eevees. So that's always the awkward thing in the deck when you play like the supporters or the cards that only benefit certain evolutions, but you have other ones in the deck. It's like, this kind of feels awkward. I don't know whether I should be playing this or not, but that was a great finish turn 1, and I think that, the deck really worked the way we wanted it to, even through a red card. So let's go to game 2. Another reason why I like Rampardos in this meta at the moment is, again, that Oricorio deck is very prevalent right now, and Rampardos just kind of smashes through everything in their deck. So that's actually really powerful. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Rampardos kind of starts to be on the rise because of that. Like the Oricorio decks kind of started to emerge as a means of countering like the Sylveon Giratina decks, which are very EX heavy. There's also Charizard EX with Sylveon, which is clearly very EX heavy. So the Oricorio decks are also really strong right now too. All right, so we get a pretty solid start here. Now the scary thing is my opponent can hit me for 40 because of the weakness. So let's of course go ahead and play Cape. We have double Rampardos, which we do not need. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of one of them, maybe find like a Leafeon or something. We find an Eevee, which I'm happy to play, because then, again, we can like potentially find like Leafeon and Sylveon, I guess. Well, we have Sylveon, right? Leafeon and Candy, I guess. The question is, should I cape here? I mean, I'm going to cape, but should I cape the Eevee, I guess is what I'm asking. So if they hit us for 40 and then we eventually evolve into Leafeon, it'll have 100 HP, which I think is workable. I'm just going to put the cape on the Skull Fossil again, and then let's go ahead and collect. And the reason I like playing cape here, typically I'd like to hold on to it, but this is a pretty red card and like Mars heavy meta. And so I'm in the situation, and I think a lot of people are as well, where you kind of want to play your cards early to try to have like 3 or less cards in hand when you pass the turn, at least in the early game, because then if I have like 4 or 5 cards in hand, that's like easy Mars or red card fodder. So my opponent's probably happy to do that. All right, so now we have some options as well. I can Sylveon to try to find... I think I'm actually going to Sylveon this one, because then if I find Leafeon, I'm looking for Leafeon or Rare Candy. Both of those, or Professor's Research. All of those are really, really good draws. Yikes. Okay, that's not great. Okay, let's go ahead and Sabrina then, just so that we can potentially survive next turn. Because if we had drawn Leafeon there, or Rare Candy, we would get to knock out Riolu, which is really strong for us. I guess I'll just go ahead and play Fossil. I don't think there's too much of a reason to not do that. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and put an energy here. I guess I wouldn't have minded putting another Eevee on the bench, but this is fine. I guess if worse comes to worse, we can always discard one of the fossils, but we did draw the Candy, so if Eevee survives, I guess, well, whether or not Eevee survives, we get to go ahead and Rampardos this turn, which is really powerful. If we knock out Ralts, we knock out kind of their setup towards Gallade EX. Actually, I guess they could Candy into Gallade, which is really scary, but they would not be able to attack. Okay, that's good. That's actually really good, because now we can kill Kirlia before they can set up for Gallade. So it just kind of sets them back a lot. I didn't really think about that, the fact that they could actually knock me out. This is pretty awkward now because, of course, Sylveon cannot attack. So we really want to find that Leafeon, although, I mean, Rampardos, that's a good start. Rampardos, of course, can kind of carry its own weight for a good while now, especially thanks to that cape. So I think this is going to be pretty strong for us here. I almost accidentally evolved the back Rampardos. I'm going to put an energy here just in case we do draw Leafeon. Okay, wow. Yeah. This has been looking really good for us. We haven't really gotten an opportunity to kind of really showcase the deck. But hey, I'm happy with that. Like, we've been setting up, we've been doing what we need to do. Let's just do one more game here since those have been pretty quick. And we've got our third opponent for the day. Typically, I only do 2 videos, but 2 battles, but like I said, you know, those have been pretty short games, both of which my opponent has conceded in both of which my opponent has conceded. I don't know, weird prepositions are weird, but anyway, we're playing against a grass deck, which could be pretty scary, although we have Leafeon and we are going second, which means we can actually attack pretty quickly here. Grass, it's Buzzwole. That's potentially scary. Now, and that's another cool thing about this deck is, of course, Rampardos is weak to grass, but Leafeon is not. So it's always fun to play decks like that where you have kind of Pokemon of 2 different typings, so that one of them is weak to a certain type, but the other is not. So we also get to hit for 30 here for what it's worth. We're definitely going to cape here. Now, if my opponent has Red Card or Mars, they might just fire it off, which could be really bad for us. Because, of course, that means we might lose the Leafeons. Of course, having 2 Leafeons here is not great. We only need the 1. So that's a big reason why I'm playing Pokemon Communication. Now, my opponent also could Red Card. They cannot Mars anymore. They're going to go Communication, which is an interesting card to be playing in, like, the Buzzwole deck. Unless they're playing a Decidueye EX deck, which is possible as well. Oh, or they're playing Beedrill. Interesting. Very, very interesting. All right, they don't get extra value out of this, which is great. Because if we had a Pokemon on the bench, they would get to do damage to that as well, which would be very good for them. Research is a great draw for us. Candy and Rampardos. That's not exactly what we want here. Definitely an awkward situation. We're going to get a knockout here, which is great. And also, if my opponent evolves into Beedrill, they cannot attack me right away. So this is going to buy us a little bit of time. But of course, you know, we kind of hope for the best here. Now, well, my opponent has so many cards. They're likely to have what they need. Hopefully they just have Kakuna and not Beedrill, or not Candy into Beedrill, but we'll see how this plays out. I think it's pretty likely that they're going to have Rare Candy into Beedrill, although if they don't, we could potentially win the game. And it's unfortunate that we didn't draw another benched Pokemon, because we could start setting up either another Leafeon or Rampardos. But unfortunately, yeah, there's the Beedrill. We're going to need something, otherwise this... Oh, interesting. Oh, wow. Oh, they can attack me now, but... Oh, well, no, we are going to need something. I was going to say we need something, otherwise we lose. All right, nice. That is, of course, going to find another Eevee, because we cannot find Skull Fossil once again. But that's actually pretty good, because now we potentially win the game. I was like, oh, shoot, I meant to evolve, but I was also going to put a cape on this Eevee anyway, so... Oh, I cannot evolve it right away, of course. All right, so we're going to hit for 70 here. Actually, I can just do... Oh, wait, whatever. I mean, I might as well do this. I don't think there's too much of a reason to not do this, but unfortunately, given our draws, we're going to get knocked out here. Hopefully my opponent doesn't have any healing or anything, but of course it's pretty likely they will. They could have Lily, they could have Leaf Cape is what I was going to say as well. So kind of an awkward situation here. They just have it all. Sure, that's fine, yeah. So they just undo all of our damage. They're still dead to 2 hits. And if we can find a Skull Fossil, that would also be really nice. Of course, importantly, we also... Well, we do not die to 2 hits from them. Oh my god. Unless they're playing red. Which they could be playing. But for now, let's do this. And yeah, let's go ahead and see what they have. I mean, of course, they already have the cape attached. They could have Erica. They could have Lily. Yeah, there's a lot they could have. I mean, if they have like a combination of healing and red, you know, that's definitely not nice. All right, that's annoying, but we are still so far winning the damage race. Looks like they still don't have another benched Pokemon. Interesting. I mean, red kills us, which is really funny. It'd be really funny if they find double Erica, red, like they just have everything. All right, really annoying. Yeah, this is actually really, really bad. We just have to hope they don't have red, or that they don't have more healing, because we don't have that Skull Fossil, so we can't evolve right away. I guess something I could end up doing next turn is evolving into Sylveon and then retreating into it. But again, my opponent has so many cards and they have not played another benched Pokemon, so it's pretty likely that they have all the tools that they need. Not literal tools, but all the tools they have to win the game. We'll find out. There's the Lily. They just literally have a bunch of healing. That's how their Beedrill does so much damage. Well, they can't red now, so that's important. But of course, a Cyrus would also lose us the game, because this next turn I plan to retreat. Yeah, maybe I should be playing healing myself, and maybe that's one of the downsides, like, to this deck. You know, with the Eeveelution deck, the one that's playing like Leafeon and Flareon, like, sure, you have like Pokemon of different types that you're playing, but they're all Eevees, so they all have the overlap of playing like Eevee Bag. Like, they all benefit from Eevee Bag, for example. Whereas this deck, you know, like I was talking about earlier, like, we have a lot of different support cards like Lily or Eevee Bag or, oh my god. I think we lose. Yeah, I think we lose now. Of course, I'm just gonna, well, actually, sorry. Can I undo that? Oh, I guess I can't. Okay. I should have, I mean, it doesn't matter. Wait, what's going on? It doesn't matter, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put an extra energy on it just because I can. Like, there's really no reason not to, I guess. And then we're going to retreat into Sylveon for the 50th time. Again, there's not really a reason to not do this, so I'm just going to play the energy and pass my turn. Very awkward situation here. That's one of the downsides. I love Rampardos, and Rampardos is such a strong and scary card. Yeah, they have Cyrus. But But that's the downside to playing Rampardos is if you don't find that skull fossil like when you need it, you have just a bunch of dead cards in hand. And of course, once again, skull fossil cannot be found off of communication or off of Pokeball. So that's kind of the awkward part. I mean, you would think playing Sylveon helps. You would think playing effectively 3 copies of Professor's Research in your deck would help you find the pieces you need, but sometimes it's just not enough, as you can see there. So that's one of the big downsides to Rampardos. I mean, when you play Rampardos, when I play Rampardos, I sometimes have games like that where I never find the skull fossils. When my opponent plays with Rampardos, they always have it. And you know what, maybe I should be playing like a Cranidos, although Cranidos would not have helped us that game anyway. So, I mean, you get to see different situations there. You know, the first 2 games kind of went very heavily in our favor. And then, of course, that last game, you know, wasn't very nice. It's crazy to think we lost to a non-EX Beedrill, but that's how it goes, right? I mean, my opponent probably thought the same thing about my deck when they lost against Leafeon EX Rampardos, but I like this deck a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a pretty solid deck too if you kind of play well, and you know, I think there are some tweaks that can be made. Maybe we don't need double cape. Maybe I should be playing some healing. I'm going to try out different cards in the kind of flex slots. Also not certain about Sabrina Cyrus. Maybe just Sabrina is fine. I don't know. There's so many options here, but it's a fun deck when it works, and it's really, really powerful. And I enjoy it because I kind of made this deck myself, and it's not something you would typically think would go well together. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like and please subscribe for more Pokemon TCG Pocket videos. Hope you're having a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.